Friday nights at the Harbor Grill were chaos on a plate. Forks clinked, kids shrieked, waitstaff darted around like bumper cars. The air smelled of fried shrimp and burnt toast, and Lena was already 10 tables deep into a shift that felt like it might never end. Her sneakers squeaked as she hustled across the dining room, balancing a tray of sodas. She plastered on the tired smile she'd mastered, one that said, "I'm fine, everything's fine," even when her lower back was screaming and her tips jarred against the edge of minimum wage. "Order up," the cook barked from the pass. "Got it," she called back, sliding the tray of sodas onto table 3 and grabbing another order without missing a beat. That's when it happened. Her elbow clipped the corner of a chair. The glass of water she'd just set down tipped forward in slow motion. Ice cubes tumbled across a lap. A dark patch bloomed on the jeans of the man at table 9. "Oh my God, I am so sorry," Lena stammered, grabbing napkins. She crouched beside the table, dabbing frantically at the spill. "I'll fix this right away. Let me grab you fresh water and maybe a towel." Before the man could speak, a voice sliced through the noise. "Lena!" Her stomach dropped. Mr. Cross, the manager, marched across the dining room, his tie swinging like a pendulum of doom. His face was already red, and she hadn't even stood up yet. "Are you kidding me?" He barked loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. "How many times do I have to tell you to watch what you're doing? That's the 3rd screw-up this week. You think we can afford to have clumsy waitresses driving away paying customers?" The diners at nearby tables turned their heads. Forks paused midair. Heat burned Lena's cheeks. She wanted to sink through the floor. "I said I was sorry," she mumbled. "Sorry doesn't pay the bills," Cross snapped. "You've got one more chance, Lena. One more. If you embarrass this restaurant again, you're out. Got it?" Her throat tightened, but she nodded. Because what else could she do? Rent was due in 2 weeks, and this job, awful as it was keeping the lights on in her 1-bedroom apartment. Cross turned to the man at table 9, forcing a smile. "Sir, I apologize for the service. I can comp your meal tonight if you'd like." The man dabbed calmly at his jeans with a napkin. He hadn't said a single word yet, which was strange. Most customers either snapped at her or brushed accidents off. But this guy, he just watched. His dark eyes were steady, unreadable. Finally, he spoke. His voice was low, even. "Actually," he said, setting the napkin down, "your waitress is the only reason I stayed after walking in here." Cross blinked. "Excuse me?" The man leaned back in his chair, utterly unbothered by the stares from nearby tables. "She's been running this entire floor by herself," with a smile. "Meanwhile, you've been standing in the corner barking at her. Maybe you should rethink who's embarrassing this restaurant." Lena froze. Did that just happen? Cross's mouth opened, then shut. He laughed awkwardly, glancing around like this was some kind of prank. "Sir, with all due respect, this is my staff we're talking about. She makes mistakes. I deal with them." The man's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile, more like a warning. "Not anymore." Cross frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" The man slid his credit card onto the table. "It means I'm paying for my dinner tonight, and tomorrow morning I'm paying for this place. The whole restaurant." The silence that followed was deafening. A fork clattered onto a plate at the next table. Lena swore she heard the hum of the soda machine from across the room. Cross laughed again, too loud, too fake. "You can't be serious." But the man stood, buttoning his jacket with calm finality. He towered over Cross without needing to raise his voice. "Good service deserves respect. She stays. You don't." He turned to Lena and gave the faintest nod, like they shared some kind of secret understanding, before walking out the door. And just like that, he was gone, leaving behind a tip fat enough to cover Lena's rent for the next 3 months. Lena stared at the wad of cash in her hand, heart pounding. Who the hell was that man at table 9? The rest of the shift blurred by in a daze. Lena carried plates, refilled drinks, and scribbled down orders like a robot on autopilot, but her mind kept replaying what had just happened. He said he was buying the place. Nobody said things like that, at least not in her world. People grumbled, complained, tipped $2 if she was lucky. They didn't stand up to Cross. They didn't leave more cash than she made in an entire week. And they sure as hell didn't buy restaurants like they were grabbing milk at the grocery store. By closing time, her coworkers were buzzing. "Who was that guy?" asked Mara, the hostess, as she wiped down menus. Did you see the suit? That was like custom tailored. I bet he's famous. Maybe he's one of those startup guys, crypto or whatever. He was too quiet for crypto, muttered Jorge, the line cook. Crypto guys don't shut up about themselves. Yeah, but did you see that tip? Mara whispered, leaning in. Lena, what'd he give you? Like 200? Lena hesitated, then showed the envelope stuffed with bills. Gasps circled the break room. Holy shit, Jorge whistled low. That's more than I make in a week. See? Mara grinned. I told you he was someone big. You don't just drop that kind of money unless you can. He's like totally loaded. Lena stuffed the envelope back into her apron. Her pulse quickened, and not from excitement. If Cross saw it? Lena? Speak of the devil. Mr. Cross shoved the break room door open, glaring. He always glared, but tonight there was something tighter about it, like the seams of his face were about to split. My office, now. The room fell silent. Mara and Jorge exchanged wide-eyed looks as Lena followed Cross down the hall. Inside the cramped office, Cross shut the door hard enough to rattle the blinds. He jabbed a finger at her. What the hell was that stunt tonight? Lena blinked. What stunt? Don't play dumb. You set me up in front of a customer. I didn't. And then you take his money like some charity case? You think I don't know you pocketed that cash? Her cheeks flared hot. He left it as a tip. I didn't ask for it. Cross sneered. You should have refused it. Now everyone thinks you're some kind of victim and I'm the villain. Lena crossed her arms, biting down hard on the words she wanted to say. You are the villain. But she couldn't risk it. Rent. Groceries. Heat. Cross leaned back in his squeaky chair, smirking like he'd already won. Listen, whatever fantasy that guy sold you, forget it. Nobody's buying this dump, and if he does, it won't be to keep you around. You'll be the first to go. Her stomach nodded. Now get out of my office, he said, waving her off. And don't screw up again. By the time Lena finally dragged herself home, it was almost midnight. Her apartment smelled faintly of ramen noodles and laundry detergent, a combination she'd gotten too used to. She kicked off her sneakers, dropped her apron onto the couch, and collapsed onto the mattress she called a bed. The envelope of cash burned a hole on the nightstand. She should feel relieved. Her rent was safe for another month, but instead she felt unsettled. Who was that man? And why had he gone to bat for her like that? Her phone buzzed with a text. Mara. OMG, check this. Attached was a screenshot of an article. Ethan Hale, the tech billionaire nobody can catch. Lena squinted at the grainy photo of the man in the article. Same eyes, same calm stare. It was him, Ethan Hale, a name she'd only half heard in headlines about Silicon Valley and philanthropy. Worth billions, apparently. Her stomach flipped. She scrolled down. He keeps a low profile, known for surprise investments in struggling businesses, prefers anonymity. Lena dropped the phone onto her chest, staring at the ceiling. So it was real. He wasn't just some eccentric guy throwing money around. He meant it. But why her? Why tonight? She didn't have the answers. All she knew was that tomorrow was going to be hell. If Cross had been furious tonight, he'd be nuclear in the morning. Still, as sleep dragged her under, one thought looped in her mind. Maybe things were about to change. Morning proved her right. By the time she walked into the Harbor Grill, the place was in a frenzy. The front windows were plastered with papers that hadn't been there yesterday. Official-looking notices with bold letters. Under new ownership. The staff crowded the lobby, whispering and gawking like tourists. Cross stormed around, barking at everyone to get back to work, though the restaurant hadn't even opened yet. What's going on? Lena asked Mara. Mara's eyes were huge. It's true. He bought it. Ethan Hale. He actually bought the restaurant. Jorge leaned in, grinning. And rumor is Cross is finished. As if on cue, the door swung open. And there he was. Ethan Hale walked in like he owned the place. Which, apparently, he did. He wore the same understated jacket, carried a to-go coffee in one hand, and looked around with the same calm expression Lena remembered from last night. Every conversation in the lobby died at once. Ethan's eyes landed on Lena, and he smiled. The silence inside the Harbor Grill was so thick you could hear the soda machine buzzing. Every pair of eyes tracked Ethan Hale as he walked across the lobby, casual as if he hadn't just flipped their entire world upside down. Mr. Cross was the first to snap out of it. His face turned purple. You, he barked. What the hell do you think you're doing? You can't just walk in here. I can, Ethan said simply, sipping his coffee. I own the place. The room erupted in whispers. Cross sputtered. This is ridiculous. I've run this restaurant for 15 years, and I'll be damned if. You're right, Ethan cut him off, voice calm but sharp. You have run it. Into the ground. The staff froze. Mara covered her mouth. Jorge muttered a low, ooh. Cross's jaw dropped. Excuse me? Ethan set his coffee down on the counter, finally meeting Cross's eyes. Last night, I watched you humiliate your employee in front of a full dining room. I watched her bust her back while you shouted at her like a drill sergeant, and I realized something. This place doesn't have a service problem. It has a leadership problem. Cross's fists clenched. You don't know the first thing about running a restaurant. No, Ethan admitted, but I know how to run a business, and step one is getting rid of toxicity. The word hung in the air like a knife. Lena's pulse hammered in her ears. She could barely process what she was seeing. The billionaire from Table 9 was dismantling her boss like it was nothing, like he'd been waiting his whole life to do it. Cross's voice cracked. You think you can just fire me? I don't think, Ethan said. I know. He pulled a slim folder from his jacket pocket and set it on the counter. The papers are signed. You're out. Gasps rippled through the staff. Cross's face went slack. For a second, Lena thought he might actually keel over. Then he snapped. This is a joke, he roared. You people hear me? He can't do this. I built this place. Ethan's expression never changed, and now I'm rebuilding it, starting with respect. His eyes slid to Lena. You? He said softly. Lena's breath caught. You're the reason I bought this place. Every head turned toward her. Heat surged into her cheeks. Ethan continued, voice steady but kind. Last night I watched you serve 10 tables alone. You kept smiling even while being berated. That's not weakness, that's strength. That's the kind of attitude that saves businesses. So yes, I'm serious. You stay. He goes. For a moment Lena couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It felt like the whole world had shifted under her feet. Cross's face twisted. This is insane. She's nothing. Just some waitress. You're making a mistake. Ethan's gaze hardened. No. The mistake was letting you run people into the ground. Goodbye, Mr. Cross. Cross stood there shaking, lips pressed so tight they went white. Then, with a furious snarl, he grabbed his keys off the counter and stormed out the door, slamming it hard enough to rattle the windows. The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Mara whispered, "Holy crap." Jorge let out a laugh that quickly spread across the room until half the staff was chuckling in disbelief. Lena was frozen. Her whole body buzzed like she just stepped off a roller coaster. Ethan turned back to her. His tone softened. You okay? She blinked. I don't know. He smiled faintly. That's fair. The staff crowded closer, everyone firing questions at once. What happens next? Are we keeping our jobs? Is the menu changing? Will we get raises? Ethan raised a hand. The room quieted instantly. One thing at a time, he said. I didn't buy this restaurant to flip it. I bought it because I see potential, mostly in the people who work here. So yes, you all still have jobs. In fact, you're going to have better jobs because starting today, we run this place with respect. Customers first, employees treated like human beings. That's how you build something that lasts. The room erupted in murmurs of relief and cautious excitement. Lena finally found her voice. Why? She asked. Her words were quiet, but the room hushed again. Why do this? Why here? Ethan studied her for a long moment. Because people like you deserve a chance, and because I've seen what happens when good people get crushed by bad management. Not on my watch. Lena swallowed hard, emotions tangling in her chest. Gratitude, fear, hope. It was too much. Too fast. Ethan picked up his coffee again, as casual as if he just ordered a burger instead of buying an entire restaurant. All right, he said. Let's get to work. That night, the Harbor Grill felt different. The same sticky floors, the same flickering neon sign, but the air carried something new, something Lena hadn't felt in years. Hope. And every time she caught Ethan watching from his quiet corner table, she realized something else. Maybe this wasn't just about saving a restaurant. Maybe it was about saving her. That night, after the staff meeting dissolved into nervous chatter and Ethan disappeared into the office with a stack of folders, Lena walked home with her head full of noise. It should have felt like a victory. Cross was gone. The restaurant had a future. She should have been celebrating with Mara and Jorge, who'd already started brainstorming new menu items over beers. But instead, Lena walked the familiar cracked sidewalks back to her apartment, her mind spinning in circles. Why her? Why had he chosen her as the reason to swoop in and buy the place? She thought about her life, about how unremarkable it all was. 26 years old. Dropped out of community college after her mom got sick because someone had to pay the bills. Dad had walked out years earlier, leaving a stack of debts and a house that wasn't theirs anymore. Her mom passed 2 summers ago, and since then it had just been Lena, working double shifts, keeping the lights on, surviving. Her dream? Once, it had been graphic design. She used to sketch logos in the margins of her notebooks, building fake companies in her head. But life had other plans, and now she was a waitress at a seafood joint with sticky menus and a manager who thought yelling counted as leadership. Until tonight. Lena unlocked her apartment, tossed her keys on the counter, and sank onto the couch. She pulled out her phone and Googled Ethan Hale. Page after page of headlines filled the screen. Tech genius, youngest self-made billionaire, philanthropist. There were photos of him shaking hands with mayors, donating to schools, standing in front of glassy skyscrapers he'd funded. And then, tucked in one profile piece, a single line jumped out at her. Hale is known for his unusual habit of quietly investing in small struggling businesses. When asked why, he once said, "Sometimes it's not about the numbers. Sometimes it's about the people who refuse to quit." Lena set the phone down. Her throat tightened. Is that what he saw in me? Someone who refused to quit? The thought scared her more than it comforted her. Because what if she wasn't that strong? What if he'd made a mistake? The next morning, Harbor Grill was buzzing like a hive. Regulars lined up outside the doors, curious about the new billionaire owner. News vans parked across the street, reporters jockeying for a glimpse. Inside, the staff clustered nervously as Ethan arrived, not in a limo, not in a suit, but in jeans and a plain t-shirt. He carried a notebook under one arm and greeted them like old friends. "Morning, everyone," he said, sliding onto a stool at the counter. "Let's talk about what's next." Jorge raised a hand like they were in school. "So we still, cook the food the same way?" Ethan grinned. "For now, yes, but we'll make upgrades. Equipment, ingredients, decor. We'll do it together. I'm not here to turn this into some chain. I want this place to feel like yours." Mara bit her lip. "What about pay? Hours?" "Better," Ethan said without hesitation. "Fair pay, schedules that don't burn people out. Respect, that's the baseline." Murmurs of relief rippled through the group. Lena stayed quiet, watching him. He spoke with this strange mix of certainty and calm, like he wasn't pitching an idea, just describing something inevitable. When the meeting broke, Ethan motioned for her to stay behind. Her heart thudded as the others filed out. "Walk with me," he said. They stepped outside into the cool morning air. Reporters shouted questions from across the street, cameras flashing, but Ethan ignored them, leading her down the block to a quieter corner. "Listen," he said finally. "I know this is a lot, but I meant what I said. You're the reason I stepped in." Lena shook her head. "Why me? I'm just a waitress. You could buy 100 restaurants. Why this one?" Ethan studied her for a beat. "Because I've been where you are." That stopped her cold. "What?" He leaned against a lamppost, eyes distant. "Before the tech companies, before the billions, I was bussing tables at a diner in Michigan. Manager used to scream at us for every tiny mistake. I remember thinking, if I ever get the chance, I'm going to change this. I'm going to be the kind of boss I never had." Lena's chest tightened. "So when I walked in here last night and saw you, running the floor with no backup, taking the hits, still smiling?" His eyes softened. "I saw myself, and I wasn't going to walk away." For a moment, Lena couldn't speak. She wanted to say thank you, but the words felt too small. Instead, she whispered, "What if I let you down?" Ethan shook his head. "You won't. I can tell." Something in his voice, steady, sure, made her believe him, at least for a moment. They stood there in the quiet, two people from completely different worlds, somehow meeting in the same place. And for the first time in years, Lena felt like maybe her story wasn't already written. 2 weeks later, the Harbor Grill didn't look like the Harbor Grill anymore. The sticky floors were gone, replaced with polished wood that gleamed under new pendant lights. The cracked vinyl booths had been reupholstered, the flickering neon signs swapped for a clean, glowing marquee. Even the smell was different. Less grease, more fresh herbs and grilled seafood. And somehow, through all of it, Lena had become the one holding it together, not by choice. Manager, Ethan had said the morning after he fired Cross. That's you? Lena had laughed in his face, not cruelly, just nervously, like he'd told the world's funniest joke. I'm not a manager, she'd said. You are now, he'd replied, handing her a clipboard. Trust me. So she'd learned, fast. Scheduling shifts, coordinating with contractors, sitting in on supplier calls where she barely understood the jargon but nodded anyway. Every day felt like trying to sprint while still tying her shoes. But Ethan was always there, sometimes in the background at his corner booth, laptop open, watching the flow of the room. Other times right beside her, teaching her how to delegate, how to push back when people tried to steamroll her, how to own the authority he insisted she already had. You don't need to know everything, he told her once, after she botched a meeting with the new seafood supplier. You just need to know when to ask questions. That's leadership. Still, doubt gnawed at her. Every mistake felt like proof that Cross had been right. She wasn't cut out for more than waiting tables. And Cross himself hadn't disappeared. At first, Lena figured he'd sulk away, maybe try his luck managing some other greasy spoon. But he kept showing up. Not inside the restaurant. He wasn't allowed within 50 feet, thanks to Ethan's lawyers, but outside. Standing across the street, arms crossed, watching. Like a cartoon villain, Mara whispered one night as they rolled silverware. He wants to rattle you, Ethan told Lena later. Don't let him. Easy for him to say. He hadn't spent years under Cross's thumb, flinching every time his voice rose. The restaurant's grand reopening drew a packed house. Regulars came to see the changes. Curious foodies came for the billionaire angle. And the staff, dressed in crisp new uniforms, moving with a kind of pride Lena had never seen before, rose to the occasion. Lena floated from table to table, checking on guests, offering free samples of the new clam chowder. For once, the energy in the room was light, joyful. People laughed, kids licked whipped cream from sundaes. The band in the corner played upbeat covers. Halfway through the night, Ethan approached her at the hostess stand. You're a natural, he said. She scoffed. I'm a nervous wreck. Doesn't show. Their eyes met for a second longer than usual. Lena's stomach flipped, and she quickly looked away. She wasn't about to start crushing on her billionaire boss. That was ridiculous, right? But the good vibes didn't last long. Around 9, Jorge rushed in from the back alley, out of breath. Lena, you better come look. She followed him outside, and froze. The dumpster behind the grill was on fire. Flames licked the edges, black smoke curling into the night. Call 911, she shouted, grabbing the fire extinguisher. Jorge sprayed while she dialed, her hands shaking. By the time the fire truck pulled up, the flames were out. But the damage was done. Smoke stung her throat, and customers peered out the windows nervously. The firefighters said it looked deliberate. And across the street, half hidden in the shadows, stood Cross. Watching. Their eyes met. He smirked, then he turned and walked away. Ethan showed up minutes later, calm as ever, but there was an edge to his voice she hadn't heard before. This isn't just about me buying the place, he said. He's trying to scare you, to make you quit. Lena swallowed hard. It's working. Ethan shook his head. Don't give him that power. She laughed bitterly. Easy for you. You're Ethan Hale. You've got billions and lawyers and bodyguards. I'm just... He cut her off gently. You're not just anything. You're the one running this place, and if Cross is trying this hard to break you, it means he knows how strong you are. The words landed in her chest like a stone tossed into a lake, rippling outward. For the first time, she let herself consider it might be true. Maybe she wasn't just surviving anymore. Maybe she was leading. By closing time, the staff was shaken but intact. Customers even clapped when Lena assured them the fire was out, dinner would go on, and dessert was on the house. Later, after the last guest left and the lights dimmed, Ethan found her sitting at the counter, chin in her hands. You did good tonight, he said quietly. She glanced up. I feel like I'm barely holding it together. That's what everyone feels, he said. The difference is, you keep showing up. Something softened in her chest. Maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe the adrenaline finally wearing off, but for the first time since all this started, she let herself smile. Thanks, she whispered. Ethan smiled back. Get some rest, manager. Tomorrow's another big day. That night, lying in bed, Lena realized something strange. For once, she wasn't dreading tomorrow. For once, she actually looked forward to it. The fire was only the beginning. Within a week, the Harbor Grill was making headlines, most of them positive. Billionaire revamps local restaurant. Employees praise new owner's fair pay. The community buzzed, and business boomed. But mixed in with the praise were poison-tipped whispers. Anonymous reviews popped up online, claiming the food was unsafe, the staff rude, the kitchen unsanitary. Someone spray-painted fraud across the side wall one night. And then came the article. Former manager says Hale using restaurant as PR stunt. The former manager wasn't named, but everyone knew. Lena slammed the newspaper down on the counter one morning, her jaw clenched. He's trying to bury us. Ethan scanned the article, unbothered. He's desperate. Lies fall apart. Yeah, but people believe lies faster than truth, she snapped. Ethan's eyes flicked up. Then we give them something stronger to believe in. Lena frowned. Like what? Like you. She blinked. Me? You're the face of this place now, Ethan said simply. Not me. Not the money. You. The words rattled her. Being a waitress was one thing. Being a manager was still surreal. But being the face of the Harbor Grill? That was insane. She shook her head. No, people don't care about me. Ethan leaned in, steady. They do. They care when they see someone fighting for them, someone they recognize. Billionaires are easy to hate. But a woman who's lived here her whole life, working her ass off, standing up to a bully, that's a story people believe in. Lena's throat tightened. He made it sound so simple. But the thought of cameras, interviews, being the story, it terrified her. Still, when Channel 7 News called asking for a segment on the restaurant's transformation, Ethan didn't take the mic. He handed it to Lena. The night of the interview, the restaurant hummed with nerves. The camera crew set up near the counter, lights glaring. Mara fussed with Lena's hair. Jorge muttered, "Don't puke on live TV." Great pep talk, Lena grumbled, palms sweating. Then the red light blinked on, and the reporter smiled. We're here at the newly reopened Harbor Grill with its manager, Lena Carter. Lena, tell us, what's different about this place now? Lena's heart thundered. For a second, words stuck in her throat. Then she remembered Ethan's advice. Don't think speeches, just tell the truth. So she did. We respect people here, she said. Our customers, our staff, this restaurant isn't just about food. It's about making people feel welcome. That's what I want for this community. The reporter leaned in. And what about the claims from your former manager, that this is all just a billionaire's PR stunt? Lena swallowed, pulse racing. Every eye in the restaurant was on her. She could deny it, dodge it, stay small, or she could finally stand tall. She lifted her chin. He had 15 years to make this place thrive. All he did was tear people down. We're building something different. And if that bothers him, that says more about him than it does about us. The room went silent. Then applause. Customers clapped. Mara whooped. Even the cameraman cracked a grin. When the segment aired that night, the community rallied. People packed the restaurant not just to eat, but to support Lena. Local blogs called her the waitress who stood up. Hashtags trended. And across the street, as always, Cross stood watching, only this time his smirk was gone. 2 days later, he made his move. The dinner rush was in full swing when the front doors slammed open. Cross stormed in, red-faced, clutching a stack of papers. This place is a sham, he bellowed, waving the documents. The health department's shutting you down. Gasps echoed. Customers shrank back. Staff froze mid-step. Lena's chest clenched. This was it. The meltdown, the sabotage, the humiliation he'd been saving. But before Ethan could even rise from his booth, Lena stepped forward. No, it's not, she said, loud and clear. Cross sneered. What do you know? You're just a... Not just anything, she cut in, her voice sharp enough to slice the room in half. Her hands shook, but she didn't back down. I'm the manager. And I know for a fact we passed every inspection this month. Those papers probably forged. Just like the lies you've been spreading. The crowd murmured. Lena took a breath, her voice steadying. You don't scare me anymore, Mr. Cross. You can yell, you can lie, you can throw every tantrum you want, but you don't run this place. Not anymore. We do, and we're not going anywhere. For a long, taut moment, Cross stared at her, his face twisted, searching for the power he used to hold over her. But it wasn't there anymore. Finally, with a guttural snarl, he crumpled the papers, tossed them onto the floor, and stormed out. The door slammed shut. The restaurant erupted in cheers. Ethan watched from his booth, a small smile playing at his lips. Not because he'd saved the day, but because she had. That night, as they closed up, Ethan found her leaning against the counter, trembling with leftover adrenaline. "You didn't need me," he said softly. Lena let out a shaky laugh. "I think I finally figured that out." Ethan nodded. That's leadership. And for the first time, she actually believed him. The Harbor Grill was full again. Families squeezed into booths, friends toasted with local craft beer, the line at the hostess stand snaked to the door. For the first time in years, Lena wasn't surviving the dinner rush. She was commanding it. "Table 7 needs a refill," she called to Mara, already crossing to check on a couple near the window. "Jorge, pivot those oysters to table 4 instead. Tell them it's on the house." Orders flew, laughter swelled, and Lena moved through it all like a conductor with her orchestra. Every mistake that once made her panic was now just another note in the rhythm. She almost forgot to glance out the window. Almost, but she did and froze. Cross again. He wasn't lurking this time. He was striding straight across the street, chin high, dragging something behind him. A portable speaker. "What the hell?" Mara muttered. Before Lena could answer, the restaurant's doors swung open. Cross stepped in, hit a button, and his voice blasted through the speaker, pre-recorded and ugly. "Harbor Grill poisons customers," the loop screamed. "Manager's a fraud. Billionaire stunt. Don't eat here." Gasps rippled across the dining room. Kids covered their ears. A couple got up, ready to leave. Ethan half rose from his booth, but stopped when he caught Lena's eyes. This was her fight. Her hands trembled, but she marched forward, the sound cutting into her bones with every step. She unplugged the speaker cord with a sharp yank, and silence slammed back into the room. Then she turned to Cross. "Enough." Her voice carried, steady even though her knees shook. "You've tried everything. Shouting, lying, fire, fear, but none of it works anymore. Not because of Ethan, not because of money, because of me, because I'm not afraid of you anymore." Cross scoffed, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You think you're a leader? You're just a waitress who spilled water on the wrong guy." "Yeah," Lena said, her voice rising with each word. "And that guy treated me like I mattered, like I deserved respect. And he was right, I do. We all do." She swept her hand toward her staff, her customers, her community. "This restaurant isn't yours to break anymore. It's ours, and you're done." For a moment, silence, then clapping. One pair of hands, then another, until the whole room thundered with applause. Customers stood, cheering, staff whooped, pounding the counter. Cross's face twisted, fury giving way to something smaller, defeat. His eyes darted from the crowd to Lena, and for the first time, he looked unsure. He opened his mouth, closed it again, then turned on his heel and stormed out. The door slammed behind him. This time, Lena knew he wouldn't be back. After the rush finally died down, the staff gathered for a late-night meal. They clinked glasses, swapped stories, laughed until their sides hurt. For the first time, Lena let herself breathe. When the last of the crew headed home, she stayed behind, stacking chairs. That's when Ethan appeared, leaning casually against the doorway. "You know," he said, "I've been in boardrooms where people half your age with twice your education crumble under pressure. Tonight, you didn't." She smirked, exhaustion softening into something like pride. "So, you're saying I passed the test?" "I'm saying," he replied, "you don't need me anymore." Her chest tightened. She didn't know why that stung, except she did. Because she didn't want him to just leave. "I didn't need you to fight Cross," she said carefully, "but I did need you to remind me I could." Their eyes held, unspoken things buzzing between them. Gratitude, respect, something else neither of them dared name. Finally, Ethan smiled. "You've built something real here. I came in thinking I'd save a restaurant. Turns out it was already saving itself. You just needed the chance." Lena's throat tightened. "So what now?" "That's up to you," he said. He handed her the keys, not just to the office, but to the restaurant itself. "It's yours, Lena, if you want it." She stared at the keys in her palm, the weight of them heavier than gold. This wasn't a handout. It wasn't pity. It was recognition. She'd fought for this, and she'd won. The next morning, a new sign went up. The Harbor Grill, managed by Lena Carter. People streamed in, not because a billionaire owned it, but because they believed in it, believed in her. And for the first time, Lena didn't feel like she was waiting tables in someone else's story. She was writing her own. Thanks for listening. Hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe.